Hello and welcome to the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast for July 11th, 2024, episode 225. Stand-up comedian, actor, and improviser Paul Green coming to you, documenting my journey as I pursue my dreams as a performer. And I gotta tell you, it has been incredible what has been happening in the last couple of months. So last night, I had the fourth performance of the Midlife Crisis comedy show with my comedy partner, the one and only Josh Novi, and we had the show, what has kind of become our hometown club, a comedy club in Gilbert, Arizona called JP's Comedy Club, and it was just an incredible show. The shows are just so much fun. They're so high energy. The crowds are unbelievable. They're so engaged. They're so into it. And it's just been an incredible journey and experience to be doing these shows. And all of these shows, it just came out of nowhere 3 or 4 months ago. This is your first time tuning into the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. So I'm a stand-up comedian, and about 3 or 4 months ago, a fellow stand-up comedian of mine named Josh Nobi called me up and said that he wanted to do a podcast with me. So we started doing a podcast, and then we quickly realized that this podcast would be so much better in front of a live audience, what we're doing. And next thing we know, we had a live show scheduled and on the books at this comedy club in Gilbert, and the turnout was incredible, and the shows have just been getting better and better as Josh and I get more more dialed in. And just so much fun. So last night, a couple of interesting things happened. The first thing was a friend of mine from elementary school showed up. And not only was she my friend from elementary school, she was my first girlfriend. You remember those like elementary school, like in elementary school, you would just say, "Will you be my girlfriend?" And they would say, "Okay." And then you were just boyfriend and girlfriend. There was like no dating because you were in 6th grade. You couldn't go anywhere. So you just asked a girl if she wanted to assume the title. So that was she was my first smooch. And I have not seen her in years. I have seen her since school. So we ended up going to the same junior high and high school. We may have even, did we graduate? Were we still at the same school? I don't remember that detail. I don't remember if maybe she ended up going to a different high school. I know we were at the same high school for at least the first couple of years. So I assume we graduated together. We were in the same grade. For some reason, I just don't remember like seeing her like my junior or senior year. So I don't know if she finished all 4 years at the same high school. But anyway, we also ran into each other maybe about, 15 years ago. I was doing real estate, and I ended up leasing her and a friend of hers a house. So anyway, I haven't seen her since then, haven't heard from her, lost touch, and she showed up at the show and brought a couple friends and was just so gracious. She sat in the front row with her friends. She was having so much fun. And when I did the stand-up portion of the comedy show, because what Josh and I do is we split the time. I do some stand-up, he does some stand-up, and then we come up together, and then we do our midlife crisis show, where we talk to audience members and improvise songs and all that. And so she was sitting in the front row, so I'm doing my stand-up, and I just called her out. I mean, she was sitting right there in the front row, and I let the entire audience know that she was my high school or my elementary school girlfriend in the 6th grade, and that she broke up with me. And then I made some sort of joke of So, this is every ex's dream, which is to be able to like be on stage and, in front of your ex who broke your heart. And in this case, she definitely made the right choice or something like that. So the audience laughed at that little misdirect. Yeah, I said, so like, so we can all see now that she definitely made the right choice. That was some incredible foresight for a sixth grader. Well played. So anyway, as I was going throughout my set, there was a handful of times where, just because a lot of my set is about being single and about dating and all of this stuff. So there was a couple other times where I was able to just sort of riff about applying whatever I just talked about to the fact that the first girl to ever top me, but not the first. But not the last. The first girl to ever top me, but not the last, was sitting in the front row. Anyway, super fun. Such a fun show. What was kind of interesting is, so when Josh and I do this, when we've done this show live, we've interviewed anywhere from 3 to 4 people and have sung songs about them. And usually the interviews, they'll last maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then we'll sing the song, and then we're on to the next person. But we just had the most fascinating people, and we only got to 2 people. And they both just had the most compelling stories. Both of them had been married, and they were there with their spouses. And it was so fascinating because they both met their spouses in a circumstance where it's actually kind of not normal, or maybe even downright not appropriate to be meeting someone romantically. So the first guy who we interviewed got in a car wreck and had to sign up for physical therapy. And his physical therapist is now his wife, and they're about to have their second kid. And I'm just going, I think it's against the rules for a physical therapist to hit on her patient. So we dove into that story. It was fascinating. He was so cool. We had so much fun, and his wife in the audience was such a good sport. She was sort of filling in some of the details of the story. And then the next woman we bring on stage met her husband when she was a stripper in Boston. So the dude who she's now married to was just at the strip club, and she gives him her email because her policy was she doesn't give out her phone number. So she gives this random dude at the strip club her email address, and he emails her. And now they've been together, I think it was 18 years or something like that. It just the most compelling stories. So, my gosh, did we have such an incredible time. We were a little worried about how well attended this show would be because our ticket sales had plummeted from the last time we did this show. And we were so worried that we were just going to end up having a very, very small crowd. And luckily, the last couple of days, a bunch of people RSVP'd. We sold a handful more tickets and really had a great crowd. It was not the biggest crowd. It was probably the smallest crowd we've had at JP's, but it was plenty big to feel like a crowd. Sometimes, if you get to a certain percentage of the room, not, being only like 20% or 25% full, or, even up towards to like 50% full, it can feel very, very empty. This crowd did not feel that way. Although I bet we were probably at about 60 maybe people out of about 100 seats. It still felt very lively, incredible energy. There were such good sports. We were laughing so hard. Me and Josh are cracking each other up. The audience is cracking up. The audience is cracking us up because, we get to tell their stories, and sometimes they'll just say the funniest things. And, obviously who we're interviewing aren't comedians, but they just come up with their personality and what's ever going on in their life, and they'll just tell these stories, and they're just such good energy and good nature. I mean, so again, we're 4 shows in, and every show just gets better and better. We're just having more fun and more fun. We haven't had any weird guests. I'm sure that'll happen eventually, and we'll have to deal with it. But so far, it's all just been up and up. So had a great time at the show last night. Yesterday during the day, me and Josh got together with our social media manager and did a bunch of video promos. We actually did a live, like a social media live thing, and we're just playing around, again, having so much fun. So the next big thing for the Midlife Crisis Comedy Podcast is we have 2 shows in Tucson, which have quite a bit of ticket availability. One of them's at a really large venue that seats almost 600. The other one seats about 200. We were hoping to sell that out. Ticket sales have been incredibly slow, so I've been getting a little concerned and a little proactive and maybe a little aggressive in seeing what needs to happen to start really moving tickets in mass to those shows, because I really want those shows to sell out and to bring our show out of the Phoenix area for the first time, with our ultimate goal being touring and being able to do these shows in any town in USA and be able to be successful with them and sell tickets and see what happens. So that's what's going on with that. Beyond that, yesterday's episode, I got so philosophical about going for dreams. My thoughts on that. I don't want to do that again. The other thing that I have been talking about lately is I have been reading the 48 Laws of Power, and really finding myself fairly drastically disconnected from these laws. Definitely not in alignment with the author's advice on how to gain power. And so what I've been doing is just going through chapter by chapter and talking about the law of power that the book talks about, and then just giving mostly my thoughts on how I don't agree with it, or if I do agree with it, how I still find it somewhat just cynical and, I would say, short-sighted. And when I was thinking about that, or I've been thinking about it more and more, I'm starting to formulate a thesis that the 48 Laws of Power are great short-term strategies for gaining power right up until the moment that somebody else who's utilizing the same 48 laws of manipulation bumps you off of your throne. And as we all know, anybody who has power, influence, a position of authority, there's probably a line around the block of people just waiting to pounce on you to usurp that power and have no problem taking you out in the process. And what I'm starting to realize is that although I don't disagree with these as strategies to obtain power, I am suspicious that they are strategies to obtain long-term power, and power that will be sustainable and fulfilling and meaningful and will last throughout the remainder of your life, I guess. Because nobody's on top their entire life. You know, Tom Brady didn't win every Super Bowl. He didn't even go to the Super Bowl every year, and he was the best quarterback of all time, probably one of the most successful athletes of all time. I don't think there's any other athlete in any other sport that has won 7 championships in their sport and has been to 9 championships and, had, winning seasons or even 20 years of professional sport. I mean, even just playing a professional sport for 20 years is such an anomaly, right? And what's Tom Brady doing now? He's doing BetterHelp commercials on YouTube, and he's getting roasted on Comedy Central and doing, was he doing a rental car commercial? He's doing these random commercials. And what's so funny is he's trying to talk as though he's an everyday man. Oh, yeah, whenever I need to rent a car, I like Hertz Rent-A-Car. I'm like, you probably have a private jet and a limo that picks you up, And by the way, I'm not faulting him for that at all. I say, good on you, brother. But anyway, so I am not convinced that the laws of power that are being discussed are actually effective laws for long term, which is a little interesting to me because they call them laws, and laws are ultimately, by definition, meaning ubiquitous, and unmovable. And yet every time the author talks about one of these laws, there's almost always a part or a story within when he's talking about a specific law where somebody exercised the law right up until the point that somebody else went and exercised it better and bumped him off of their throne. So yeah, I don't know if, that's definitely not how I want to live. Definitely not what I'm seeking in my life. Like, yeah, I'm going to screw as many people over as possible and then, obtain some sort of a semblance of power and money and wealth right up until somebody then uses all the same manipulative strategies to take me down and then, takes over. So anyway, so today's law of power was I forgot it. I looked it up right before the podcast so that I would remember it. And now it is not coming to me. All right. Come on, Google. Don't let me down. 48 laws of power. Let's find a chapter breakdown on Google. Chapter summary. Here we go. That should probably do it. Methinks. All right, here we go. 48 laws of power. And court attention. Yep, I remember that one. Oh yeah, that's it. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Oh, I'll just read the chapter summary. When you force, I hate that word. Right off the bat. So listen to this. It says, make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. When you force the other person to act, you are the one in control. It is always better to make your opponent come to you, abandoning his own plan in the process. Lure him in with fabulous games. Then attack. You hold the cards. The essence of power is keeping the initiative and forcing others to react. Keeping them on the defensive, master your anger. Yet play on people's natural tendency to react angrily when pushed and baited. Doesn't it just sound like This is Emperor Palpatine teaching Darth Vader how to use the dark side of the Force. Make other people come to you, Darth Vader. Use bait if necessary. The essence of power is keeping the initiative and forcing others to react, keeping them on the defensive. Master your anger, yet play on people's natural tendency to react angrily when pushed and baited. Is that a good Emperor Palpatine? I don't know if I've ever done an Emperor Palpatine impersonation before. Oh gosh. Okay, first of all, there is nothing in my life, nothing that I desire, nothing that I hope for, nothing that I wish for, nothing I dream for, nothing I desire that I have any interest coming into my life by use of force. I'm realizing I really do not like that word at all. It's funny that it says force, and I'm talking about, and I did a Star Wars analogy. Use the force, Luke. Forcing others to react. I absolutely do not like or appreciate that sentiment or that strategy. I'm at a point in my life where, as best as I can, this is how I move about the world. I show up with as much love and as much energy and as much openness and happiness and fulfillment that I can. And in whatever situation I'm in, I have zero interest in taking or forcing anybody to do anything. I might extend an invitation. I might express a want. And other than that, if somebody does not want to participate in whatever it is that has to do with me, whether that's a working relationship, a romantic relationship, a friendship relationship, a familial relationship, a basic transactional relationship at a grocery store. If it is not 100%, I hate the word consensual. That makes it sound like I'm talking about something else, but I don't know what other word to use. If the other party is not a 100% willing and excited participant to interact with me in whatever the context is, then it's like conversation over. And there's no hard feeling, and by the way, I didn't used to always be this way. I mean, there was a time, when I was very, insecure. I was very needy. And, if, like a woman didn't want to go out with me, it would devastate me and, blah, blah, blah. And, maybe I'd get all pissy, or maybe I would try to argue. Well, no, you should want to go. What? And now, I look at that and I just go, "What? No, that woman doesn't want to go out with me. Great. Then yeah, we shouldn't. Matter of fact, thank you for telling me, because an even worse than that would be if you didn't want to go out with me, but you felt some sort of obligation or, some sort of courtesy to oblige. And I have zero interest in that. And if I haven't showed up in a manner that somebody else finds attractive or finds compelling, well, let's take Josh Novi. Let's take, our relationship, our professional and personal relationship. He's becoming one of the most significant friendships that I have in my life right now, and also professional, because of what we're building together. I didn't I didn't make him come to me. I didn't bait him. I invited him to do a podcast with me, and he showed up and he did this very podcast, which, by the way, if you want to see the podcast that Josh Noby and I did, you can scroll back through and find that episode on YouTube or on Spotify or whatever. I did that podcast. He was happy to do the podcast. We had a great time. A couple weeks later, he called me. It wasn't like I was baiting him. Like, well, I want to do something with Josh Noby, so I'm going to, I'm going to manipulate. I am going to force him to come to me first, young Skywalker. No, I didn't do that. He just called me up. He's like, hey, I think we should do this thing. And it sounded very compelling. And I thought, Josh is a good dude, and he's a funny dude, and he wants to do something with me. What a tremendous gift that somebody wants to work with me and give some of their time and energy and life to me. And I was more than happy to go over there. He didn't bait me. He didn't manipulate me. He didn't force me. I was 100% happy and excited to go see what he had in mind to start a podcast. And now we do this podcast together, and nobody's forcing anybody. Nobody's baiting the other. Nobody's waiting for the other person to come to him. No one's trying to, one up their enemy to gain power. It's just completely collaborative. And to be honest, those are the only types of interactions of which I have any interest. Now, is it possible that I could find myself in a circumstance so beyond my control that I would need to perhaps show up differently? Totally possible. I don't know. If America gets invaded and all of a sudden, we have, I don't know, an army, whatever, walking our streets, and next thing I know, I've been adopted into their military training program, and I don't. Okay, well then, yeah, maybe I'll try to make them come to me just to show how powerful I am. All right. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on law number 8 of the 48 laws of power. Make people come to you or whatever. Use bait if necessary. Yep, not gonna do it. The only bait that I have is myself and my personality, whatever pros and cons that how do I say this? Whatever pros and cons my personality exudes out into the world, that's my bait. And if somebody is compelled by that, then, and I'm compelled in return, then that to me is a win-win and has the potential for long-lasting power in a good way. I can see Josh and I being friends and doing shows together until we die in our 80s. So anyway, hey, you do you know what I'm saying? If you like that law of power and you're like, you want to know what part actually I think I should make everybody come to me, you know what I mean? Then hey, you do you. I don't know why I became a New Yorker. All right, everybody. That is the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast for July 11th, 2024. Thank you so much for listening. I love you all so much. I hope your lives are going fantastic. You're finding joy and fulfillment in your journey as you pursue your dreams. Thank you again. I love you all, and I will talk to you tomorrow.